Welcome to YouTube Creator News, where I keep YouTubers like you up to date with everything that's happening on YouTube. I've got some crazy information for you today. Now, typically, I've got the whole green screen set up, and I have like a little sponsored spot and things like that. But today, we're kind of pushing all that to the side because there's some serious information that you need to know about as a content creator. So we're going to talk about that first, and then I have, the normal like feature updates and things like that in terms of we're covering the serious topic first that you need to know about as a content creator, especially if you're somebody that does this professionally or if you have a small channel, because this is going to impact you as well if you're trying to grow, depending on, how things play out. But we're also going to talk about some feature updates and all of that once this is complete. But here we go. So by the way, if this is your first time here, I do want to let you know that I do content every single Friday where I keep YouTubers like you up to date with everything that's happening on YouTube. So if this is your first time experiencing my content, make sure you subscribe, because I also help content creators grow their YouTube channels as well. So my whole channel is filled with that type of stuff. But anyway, we're going to get into it. So with this, I actually wrote down this information. I kind of scripted it out in a way because, typically I'll, know the information, and then I'll be able to share it during these news segments. But this one, because it's like legal stuff and there's tons of details attached to it, and I just want to make sure that you get the information that you need without a bunch of jumbling around and things like that. So I'm actually going to just read to you what I wrote here, and then we'll get into like the bullet pointed stuff with features and all that stuff here in just a minute. But basically, here's what's going on. So Section 230 Section 230, which is an act that could possibly destroy YouTube as we know it. Here are the cliff notes that you need to know. On February 21st, which is this coming Tuesday, or Tuesday of next week, the United States Supreme Court is hearing what's called oral arguments on a case called Gonzalez versus Google. This is about Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act that was crafted back in 1996 when all this stuff, with the internet was like really starting to pick up steam. It's an act that protects websites, just so you have some context. It's an act that protects websites like YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, anybody that operates in the US from liability from third-party content. So what that means is, let's say somebody uploads something and somebody takes that information and they do something bad with that information. Well, YouTube isn't held liable for what I uploaded. For example, if somebody took that information and did something bad for it, that would come back on me. And this particular act has essentially made it possible for all of these platforms to exist. But the Gonzalez family, who is, in this Supreme Court case with Google, they are saying that YouTube recommended content that radicalized someone to commit an act of terror, specifically stabbing of their family member in Paris in 2015. The way this is being framed is, if YouTube knows the content is on their platform, then they should be held liable if they recommend it to somebody. But 230 protects them from that currently, which is why the Gonzalez family is challenging them. If this passes, it's going to impact every platform that recommends anything online in the United States. So not only YouTube, but all platforms. But they have to prove that YouTube knowingly recommended dangerous content. And they have to, just look into the details of kind of what's happening right now with the internet as well. If they can, then we're in for a bit of a ride, so to speak. But if this changes, it puts the burden on the platforms, and it could cause YouTube to stop recommending content, which is where everything would break, essentially, right? Because how YouTube currently works, just for additional context here, is how YouTube currently works is, when people log into the platform, their algorithm that we're all trying to make, good content for people. So the algorithm will show our content to more people based on the satisfaction scores and all that. So basically how it works currently is YouTube's just recommending content to people as they come on in order to create a good experience for viewers based on the things that they are interested in, right? However, if this were to change, then what could happen is it could make YouTube liable. And if YouTube is liable, then that could mean that somebody could upload something and people could just start pressing lawsuits against YouTube because YouTube has allowed this stuff to exist, or they've actually recommended it to people. So because of that, if you have a new YouTube channel and you're trying to get off the ground, there's not necessarily, if this passes and if there's not a solution, there's not going to be anything to recommend you anywhere, right? Because they wouldn't be able to legally. In the event that, this were to happen, there might be solutions that come into place. Maybe the homepage turns into a search page like Google or something like that. I'm not sure. But basically, I'll keep reading here because I'm going off here a little bit, but basically, let's see here. If this changes, it puts the burden on the platforms. It could cause YouTube to stop recommending content, at least in the way they're currently doing it. With all of that said, I know that this sounds scary, but don't panic. I had to write this down, but don't panic. YouTube has a team of lawyers working on this. Reddit, Facebook, and Twitter also have lawyers involved in this because, this is going to impact everybody if there are changes made. And it's likely that, let's see here, likely that there are things that they can do in the event that there are a change. For example, maybe, and I don't know that this is the solution to this problem, but basically what could possibly happen in this scenario if there's a change that would put that, legal fault, so to speak, on YouTube for recommending content to people that, people could use inappropriately or whatever, when they are doing that. Technically, a way around it may be, depending on how all this stuff plays out, that people just have to, submit every time they log into YouTube on an app or computer. They might have to say, yes, I agree to get recommended content or something like that as kind of a workaround. I don't know. But I'm just saying, like they and the other platforms are also thinking ahead in terms of like, if this goes south, then how are we going to, pivot for this, or how are we going to make an adjustment so that we can still, kind of keep everything moving? Because, these are major companies that, that are kind of in the crosshairs here. But, one of the other things that I mentioned here in my notes is that, there's sites on the internet already to where, like if you're under a certain age, or if they require you to be of a certain age in order to access some, websites just based on the information there, what they're showing or whatever. And how that works is, when people are logging into those sites, they just have to agree as they're going in. And that kind of puts the fault back on the person, or the responsibility back on the person that's consuming the content and not the platforms itself. So hopefully if there is a change made, hopefully they end up with an easy solution like that, instead of, content creators kind of, being in the crosshairs and having to, adjust their own lives, based on, this situation. But, when it comes to this, like, in terms of the possible solutions, maybe they have a little toggle on there saying, yes, recommend me content. Maybe they have a page that pops up. I'm not sure, but this is a big deal. I'm concerned about this. Typically, for those of you that have been watching my channel for a while and you've been seeing, these news segments, typically I'm like, hey, don't worry about it. Not a big deal. This is the way to look at it and things like that. But, to be honest, I'm concerned about this one. And the reason I'm concerned about it is because, the recommendation system is basically all of the recommendations on all these different platforms are the things that make the platforms what it is that they are. And if those were to, have to stop recommending content to people, then it's going to destroy, the platforms as we know it. And a lot of content creators that do this for a living are going to get wiped out. A lot of people that have, aspired to do this for a living, they're going to have some issues as well. So, because of that, I really hope that, they do find a solution to this particular, situation. But the positive side is that if changes are made, in addition to it breaking how a lot of the internet works, and if we're honest, almost every organization, and this is the part that makes me think that solutions will be found, is that every organization that has any type of power leverages the internet for that power as well. So for example, politics, religion, the music industry, pharmaceutical, so on, like all the major industries that have, like real power in the world, they are, like, they leverage all of this stuff. They leverage content. They leverage, all these social platforms to get votes and things like that. So because of that, I'm sure a solution of some kind, or I hope a solution of some kind will be found. But in the long term, I think an agreement will be made. And even if the case has a negative outcome, I think there'll quickly be a resolution of some kind. The timeline on this, and this is something that you all need to know, is the oral arguments. And again, for those of you that are just joining us, the oral arguments are where both parties explain and discuss their sides, right? So the Gonzalez family and their team of lawyers, they're going to be, basically saying, hey, like, this is our point of view. And then Google and all of their lawyers is going to be saying like, yeah, but this is our point of view, right? And then from there, the Supreme Court is going to take all of that information and they're going to deliberate on it, I think is the language. And they're going to basically stew it over and they're going to say like, okay, this is what this, person said, this is what this person said. And, based on, the information that we have and the research that we do, this is our decision. Okay. So that actual decision is not coming until June. So on Tuesday, they're having the conversation, both sides pleading their cases, but in June is when we're actually going to know the outcome of exactly what is going to happen. If you're just joining us, what I'm talking about right now, and just a heads up, we're talking about other YouTube news as well, but the main thing that we're talking about today is about Section 230. So this coming Tuesday, for those of you that are just joining us, this coming Tuesday, the United States Supreme Court is hearing oral arguments, which is where both sides argue their cases, in a case called Gonzalez versus Google. And with this particular case, they are attacking the recommendation systems. They're not attacking the recommendation systems. The recommendation systems are kind of the thing that is under attack, but they're actually going after Google, right, for recommending the content. But the side effect is that how YouTube recommends content might be impacted, which could be, devastating in some cases if this whole thing goes south. But again, if you're just joining us, this is something that I mentioned, a few minutes ago, is, because there is a lot involved here and these social media platforms are just a major part of society now. I'm sure there's hopefully going to be some type of like agreement put in place, or, they're going to come up with some type of solution, even if it's something stupid, like when you're logging into YouTube, you have to agree to be recommended content or something like that. Hopefully something like that will be able to get us through. But if they decide to change things in June, it will have immediate impact, which means that as soon as that court case is settled, or as soon as they make a decision, then what's going to happen, and pardon me if I'm like messing up, some of like how I'm saying the legal things here, because I'm not a lawyer, I'm a YouTuber. But when it comes to them making the final decision, if they say like, hey, yep, you're going to be held liable for the recommendations, then some of these platforms, they're going to have to make changes immediately. Now, of course, according to my sources anyway, with some of these platforms, specifically YouTube, they have, a lot of money behind them. And because of that, they can essentially put up the shields for a little bit and take lawsuits and things like that for a little bit of time while they try to find a solution, for this, or a, workaround that to where, it would comply legally. In addition to that, all of these platforms are also, they know this is coming. They've been knowing it's coming for a while. So they're also working on it, ahead of all of that as well, trying to come up with solutions. But at this moment in time, we can't influence the Supreme Court. Right? So there's not like a form we can fill out. There's not like anything like that. Like, this is at the Supreme Court level. So because of that, we're just kind of, our hands are tied as content creators. Typically in a situation like this, we might rally, right? Like with COPPA, we all kind of rallied together. We're, like calling Congress people and stuff like that. But with this, it's the Supreme Court. So all we can do is kind of sit back and watch and see what happens. But again, the timeline is this coming Tuesday, they are having the conversation. And after that, after they are finished with their oral arguments, then the actual decision is going to be made in June. So that's when you're really going to want to make sure you're paying attention to this, because the conversation tomorrow, or not tomorrow, but Tuesday, is going to be interesting. But the real threat, so to speak, in terms of like I'm going to wake up that day and I probably won't go to sleep just based on time zones and stuff. I'm going to be staying awake trying to wait and see what the result is, but June is when that's going to happen. And again, it can go into immediate effect and start impacting content creators. And if it goes south, then just as a reminder, like for those of you that are professional content creators like I am, right? Like we do this for a living. So for those of us, if we have followings already, it's possible that, they might be able, because they subscribe, that they might be able to see some of our content or something like that. For my content, it would be curtains because the people that would desire to do YouTube would pretty much vanish at that point. So it would just become like entertainment or something like that, I would guess, and educational stuff not related to YouTube. But, if that were to happen, it would go into immediate effect, and they would have to, start, one, putting up the shields to defend lawsuits and things like that while working on a solution. But like when you log into, YouTube on the day that happens or the next day, it's possible that like, what you're seeing there and the recommendations and everything could change like, right there in the spot. It's possible. So, so because of that, all we can do is watch and, kind of cross our fingers and, kind of hope that it goes in our favor here. But even on the other side, you have, new content creators, because I know a lot of you are new content creators. So on that side, it also works against you as well. So if you're new and YouTube can't recommend your content, then the only way that people would be able to find your content is if you marketed it somewhere else that somehow was allowed to recommend content to people to where, you'd be able to show that. And that would be like the only way that you would be able to bring attention to yourself outside of search where people might actively be looking for something. So because of that, this is a really serious, thing. And, I know I'm concerned. I do have faith because all of this stuff is, such a massive part of culture and society and all of that. I do believe that, some type of solutions will be found. However, this is just a reminder for everyone to make sure that, you are, trying to, capitalize on this moment, so to speak, with your audience, with the connections that you have, with any money that you're making from this and all of that. Make sure you do capitalize on that stuff because, things like this happen. And it can change, the way that, that all of this stuff operates because, we're all in like, unprecedented territory here. All of these platforms, they're all innovating in real time. So, because of that, these types of things, are going to continue to pop up over time. But so that's Section 230. So if you're just joining us, Section 230 is what we're talking about. That case is the oral arguments for that case. It's called Gonzalez versus Google. I have links to it down in the description. But those oral arguments where both parties argue their sides, that's happening on Tuesday. And essentially it's an attack on the recommendation system. So basically the Gonzalez family, they're claiming that YouTube's recommendations, because you know how the rabbit hole goes, we saw it actually over the last couple of years as well, to where, once you start watching something, YouTube will just kind of continue to stack. All of the platforms do. That's how they work. They just continue. This is live, MJ Recording Studio. But basically what they do is they just continue to, recommend you more of the content that you like to consume. So in the situation where they recommend, some types of content to some types of people, it can start driving them down that rabbit hole to where they're like, oh my gosh, all this craziness is going on. I got to do something about it. And then, next thing you know, you end up in, these types of situations. So because of that, they're kind of, under attack. And Zena Batha says TikTok is going to take advantage of this. So it's also important for everybody to know this isn't just a YouTube problem. This is a YouTube problem, a Facebook problem, a TikTok problem. Any app that recommends content in the United States, it's a problem for them. It's a problem for Reddit because they recommend content. Any platform, Tumblr recommends content, anything that's out there. Even I think for, certain, segments of the audience here, some of you also watch like, Rumbler and stuff like that. Those are also any platform that recommends content. This is a Supreme Court thing. Like any platform that recommends content is at risk here in terms of them being able to recommend content to people. So the smaller platforms, if this change happens, like we can just kiss them goodbye, like right out of the gate. So if that were to happen, like if they don't have the finances to hold it up, opportunists are going to be able to say like, oh, hey, they recommended something to me. I'm going to press a lawsuit on them, right? And those smaller companies aren't going to be able to withstand that force of all those lawsuits coming in, where the bigger platforms will be able to, will be able to fend them off, for a bit while they work on a solution. But the next part of the news that we have today, and this, to be honest, like I'm just going to call it what it is, and I'm not saying that it's one thing or another, but this makes me a little bit nervous as well. But So Susan Wojcicki, she's stepping down as CEO of YouTube as well. She put out a open letter to creators. You can actually find a link to her letter down in the description as well. But she's being replaced by Neil Mohan, who is currently the chief product officer over at YouTube. And the timing on that makes me nervous, but I'm not going to put that hat on, so to speak. But the timing of that makes me just a little bit uncomfortable. But overall, she's saying that she's moving on, just for her health and for to focus on other priorities in her life, because she's done an amazing job here at YouTube, building the platform from like $4 billion, dollars to like $29 billion, and like she's just done incredible things here, giving us tons of opportunities. Yes, I know she has, been behind some things that some content creators, disagree with and all of that. But, through all these changes, it's made the platform what it is. And she's done a fantastic job. And, with that, she won't ever see this. But, with that, I just wish her a farewell. And I just want to personally thank her, because of her contributions to the platform and making it what it is. It's been able to change my life. And I'm sure there's some other people here in the chat right now to where, it's changed their lives in positive ways as well. And, that's in part, from her and the work that she's put in to drive the platform to be what it is. So, I wish her well on, anything that she's going to be going into in the future. In addition to that, in additional YouTube news, just as a heads up for you content creators, Creator Music is now rolled out to all YouTube partner content creators, anybody in the YouTube partner program that's in the United States. Before you use it, though, please watch the video that I put out on it. I've got a link to it down in the description. It's like a 30-minute video. You can skip through it, but it highlights all of the crazy stuff that's involved with using some of that music. Some of it's fine. You just have to make sure that you are treading lightly and that you are informed before you start using the music over there. So make sure that you check out that video. Again, it's linked down in the description, or you can just go to YouTube search and type in Nick Nimmin Creator Music or Nick Nimmin YouTube Creator Music, and it should surface that way. But in addition to that, some feature updates for you as content creators. Image polls for YouTube community feeds have started rolling out to a small percentage of users on iOS. This is already available for Android users, already available for people on computers, but iOS, it's rolling out for some iOS users to experiment with. So you might have it, you might not have it as well. This is something that they're just rolling out. In addition to that, you're going to start getting data stories from community posts. Basically, this is going to help you understand how people are interacting with your posts, where they're finding your posts, things like that. And for those of you that are in the YouTube Partner Program, the membership join button is getting added into the Shorts feed. If somebody is a subscriber of your YouTube channel, then they're going to have the option to join your membership right there in the Shorts feed as well, which hopefully will help some of you make some more money from the content that you're putting out. But when it comes to this, for those of you that are just joining us, I have links to the information about Section 230 down in the description of this video right now. But in a nutshell, the oral arguments, and I'm just going to come back to this really quick because we had a nice influx of viewers here, so I just want to make sure everybody's up to date. But basically, the oral arguments for the case called Gonzalez v. Google, that's happening on Tuesday. And essentially what this is the Gonzalez family is pressing a lawsuit against YouTube. And they, as a part of this, the Supreme Court is hearing this, and they might end up changing Section 230. And Section 230 is part of the Communications Decency Act. And basically what that is that gives people the free speech to be able to talk about whatever they want on the internet, within reason. And with that, it takes away the responsibility from the platforms for third-party people to be uploading content. So for example, when I upload a video to YouTube, regardless of the subject matter, YouTube isn't held liable for the information contained in that video. With this law, that's going to be changing, or it could be changing, if they, if they rule not in favor of Google. So, so because of that, again, if you're just joining us, watch this on the replay. You'll get more, more details there. But again, just, situations like this are always scary in any industry. When any, change like this or possible change like this happens, anything that could set a precedent that could, really negatively impact content creators. So for those of you that are, that do this professionally, or people that are, for those of you that are just coming in and you're trying to, get the, ball rolling, so to speak, don't look at this and say like, oh, I shouldn't even be, worrying about this because, this might be, impacting, YouTube and might come back to bite me later. where they might also rule in Google's favor, right? So like the thing I'm trying to do here is let you know what's going on and let you know that there is risk involved, and let you know, especially if you do this professionally, that, just kind of keep your eyes open on maybe, just some, just on what's going on, right? So like keep, just look in the news from time to time, do some Google searches from time to time on, Section 230. But of course, I'll be keeping you, up to date, once the actual information drops about that. And if we get any information after the conversation happens on Tuesday, then once I get that information and I can, kind of write something up here to where, I can make it make sense, then in that case, of course, I'll be, publishing something on that as well, or just going live, and talking about it. So again, don't completely panic about this. I'm concerned, but, with these platforms, again, they are very good at what it is that they do. They have some of the best legal teams in the world that, work on this stuff. And because of that, even if they rule negatively, towards Google, if they don't rule in Google's favor, then in that particular case, if there are changes that need to be made, you also have some very smart people that are, at the helm of this ship, and not just YouTube, but, Facebook and Reddit and like all these major platforms that will go, because this is going to impact them too in their jobs, right? So they're at risk also. So because of that, they're going to go, and I'm sure they already are behind the scenes, but they're going to go all in trying to find solutions, workarounds, things like that in order to, keep everything rolling as it is. So because of that, don't freak out. Don't look at this as a thing to where it's like, oh, I should quit or anything like that. Because this is just a little speed bump, and it is something of concern. I mean, it's not a speed bump, it's a major issue. And, if it goes south, it could go really south, but it's definitely, something of concern. But again, massive websites or massive services with tons of money behind them, leveraged by a lot of, by extremely, powerful folks that, that it's got to be taken into consideration, right? So because of that, I'm sure that, these platforms will find a workaround for it, but it is something of concern. You're content creators. My job is to keep you up to date with everything that's happening so that, so that you can, so that you know what's up. So, so that's why I wanted to make sure to, mention this to you and just let you know that, this is taking place. So make sure that you are keeping an eye on the information. And again, once I know more, then I'll let you guys know more. And besides that, have an awesome rest of your weekend. I'll be doing my regular live stream tomorrow. So if you want to learn how to grow your YouTube channel or have questions about what it is that you're doing on YouTube, make sure that you check out the live stream tomorrow. And besides that, have a great weekend and hit the like button on the way out. And if you know YouTubers, make sure you share this with them as well, because, this is something that impacts all of us. It doesn't matter if you just uploaded your very first video or if you've been on YouTube since day one. This, this has the potential to impact every single one of us. So if you have a YouTuber to keep, if you know a YouTuber to keep them in the loop, share this video with them. Or if you find other videos, like I don't care if it's this video or another video about it or whatever, but, just kind of spread the word and let other content creators know that might be kind of out of the loop on this, just so they can kind of know, what's going on. So have a great rest of your weekend, and I will see you next time.